Okay, here's your assignment. Watch somebody sleep. Ha ha ha. Yeah, maybe you should get their permission first. No, do not peek in people's windows. If we watch somebody sleep, you can very easily notice when they fall asleep. Clunk. They fall asleep. So from wake to sleep is very clear distinction. And once a person falls asleep, we can have a stopwatch, and we can start that stopwatch and we watch their eyes. And after a while, their eyes will start moving around. All mammals do this, and some birds do this. And when their eyes start darting around, we stop the stopwatch and we see an amount of time has gone by. Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 1 minute. A certain amount of time has gone by when a person goes to sleep, and then we time it until their eyes start darting around. All right, that amount of time is called REM latency. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Anyway, so in these slides, we're going to talk about sleep and dreaming and how psychologists try to study sleep and dreaming. When people sleep, sometimes their eyes move around. They sort of dart back and forth and up and down. And you can see this eye movement, even though their eyes are closed. The cornea, the front part of the eye, bumps out through the eyelid or pushes the eyelid out so that you can see the eyes moving around. If you watch somebody sleep, you'll see sometimes their eyes are darting around. Now we call that REM sleep. We don't call it REM. That was the name of a band some years ago. We call it REM sleep. It stands for rapid eye movement. Way back in the 1950s when this was discovered, scientists were sitting in a room looking at the brain waves, and it looked like the person sleeping in the other room had awakened. It looked like they woke up. So they went in to check on them, and they weren't awake. So at first they called this paradoxical sleep. Paradox means a contradiction, a conflict. The contradiction was that the person's brain looks like they're awake, but their behavior, their body is asleep. So this was called paradoxical sleep. Then later it was noticed that eyes were darting around. So it got known as rapid eye movement sleep, which became known as REM. So now we always call it REM sleep. And during REM sleep, a brain looks awake. The brain is very, very active, but the muscles of the body are not moving. We call this REM sleep atonia. Atonia means A means not, tone, muscle tone, no muscle tone. So there's a little switch in the bottom of your brain that when you go into REM sleep, this switch turns off the electrical signals that go to your muscles in your body. So if you watch somebody sleep, when their eyes are darting around, their body is not moving. If their body is moving, something's wrong. That's not supposed to be happening. That's a disorder. That's a sleep disorder. So during REM, you have very active brain and you have atonia. If you wake a person up during REM, they usually say they're dreaming about 85% of the time. So we think of REM sleep as dream sleep. The other kind of sleep, when your eyes are not darting around and you're rolling around in bed and you're moving around, maybe you're sleepwalking, maybe you're sleep talking, we call that non-REM sleep. We write it like you can see here on this slide, capital N, capital R, capital E, capital M, but it's pronounced non-REM sleep. Okay, go to the next slide. What we can do in a sleep lab is put an EEG cap on a person's head. And so when they're asleep, this cap has very sensitive electrodes that will measure the electrical activity going on near the surface of their brain. So brains are made of hundreds of billions of cells. These little tiny, tiny cells create electrical energy. We'll study that later. And you can measure this electrical activity. And that's called an electroencephalograph. Electro meaning we're measuring electrical activity. N means inside. E-N. N means inside. Cephal is your skull, your head. And then graph means to write. So we're writing the electrical signals that are coming from inside your head. And we use this to define certain stages of sleep. Here is an illustration of what brainwaves might look like when you're awake and during REM sleep and then during non-REM sleep. So non-REM sleep is divided into, well, in the old days it was divided into 4 stages. It's more common today to divide it into 3 stages, or some people just call deep sleep, that is stages 3 and 4, or what we call now the non-REM 3, stage N3, non-REM sleep 3, sometimes called SWS, slow wave sleep. So brain waves are very slow in stages 3 and 4, or in SWS, slow wave sleep. And the body's moving around. It's hard to wake people up. That's deep sleep. Stage 3 or stage 4, slow wave sleep. That's hard to wake someone up. That's deep sleep. REM sleep, brains look very, very active. So look at the different brain waves for when people are awake, and then compare that to REM sleep. They look very much alike. If we measure a person's brain waves throughout a night of sleep, we get what's called a Hypno Gram. And this shows the person moving from awake and then down into stage 1 and stage 2 and all the way down to stage 4 and then back up again. So people, when they sleep, they typically go through these different cycles where they go down into deep sleep. Their brain waves get slower and slower and slower. And then especially when you first go to sleep, you spend quite a bit of time in deep sleep. And then brain waves speed up and you go into REM sleep when brain waves are very, very active. And so here on this chart, this hypnogram, REM sleep is indicated in black. So after an hour and a half, a person goes into REM sleep, and then they go back to deep sleep, and then they go back up to REM sleep, and then back to deep sleep. So in a typical night of 8 hours of sleep, you might have 3 or 4 periods of REM sleep when you're probably having dreams. Why don't we remember all our dreams? Well, if you wake up right when you're having a dream or within, say, 30 seconds, you'll remember the dream. But if you have a dream and then you keep sleeping for another minute or two, and then you wake up, you won't remember the dream, because we'll study memory later in this class. But that's how memory works, is that if we don't pay attention to something after 20 or 30 seconds, it goes away. REM sleep, of course, is very interesting to people because it's associated with dreaming. REM stands for rapid eye movement, and we have maybe 4 or 5 of these periods when we go to sleep. They seem to be important. If you stop people from having REM sleep, they'll have more later on. And so REM sleep seems to be important. We have this thing called Rem Rebound. For example, if you drink alcohol, that puts the brakes on REM sleep. It reduces REM sleep. And so the next day you might have more dreams than usual after drinking alcohol, because your brain is trying to make up the REM sleep that it missed. So during REM, your eyes are moving around, but your body is not moving around. You have atonia. Your brain waves are very active. If we wake up, you'll probably say you're dreaming.